Okay, we made it to part 11, 1-1. You know, Apollo 1, Apollo 11, aces are 1 or 11. I wanted to show you something really quick. I don't even know if you're going to be able to read this on the video, but this is a list of all the things that are 1 so far. And some of them are not readily apparent when you first see them. So let me show you this. We have Indiana Jones has 1 in it. Jonestown, Kool-Aid in the pantry. Lone Nut, that's Oswald. Alone is Admiral Byrd's book. Apollo 1, Apollo 1-1. Sylvester Stallone, he's a Looney Tune. Sylvester is a Looney Tune. Lonely Hearts Club has 1 in it. Every one of these clues that I've mentioned so far, some of them I haven't even gotten to, they're all 1. One Small Step, One-Eyed Jack's the movie, One-Eyed Jack the playing card, One-Eyed Card Player Barry Lyndon, One-Legged Man Barry Lyndon, No Nose Tycho Bray, Oliver Stone has a 1 in his name. 1 year, this is Eyes Wide Shut. Nicole Kidman, the redhead, is wrapping a book on Van Gogh for Tom Cruise. Van Gogh is the One-Eared Man. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. The great one is Jackie Gleason. I haven't gotten to him yet. He's a honeymooner. Ryan O'Neal has 1 in his name. Patricia O'Neal, Summer of 42. They're brother and sister. We have a match here, a pair. Doc Bones, Star Trek. Philip Stone. Where's it? We have rocks. We have the Rolling Stones. We have the Blue Marble. We have the Jade Rabbit. We have James Mason. Okay. We have the Looney Tunes has a 1 in it. Lionel Mandrake is the character Peter Sellers plays. And Mandrake is a plant, a poisonous plant. Lionel White writes the book Clean Break, which is what the movie is based off of. The movie Killing, The Killing is based off of. No Man Has Gone Before, The Bell Videophone, The Bone Weapon, TMA 1, Aries 1B, Discovery 1, Capricorn 1, Dr. Kimball, The One-Armed Man. So, you know, there's a lot of things in here that are hidden, and yet they're right in front of you. I wanted to show you that. I also wanted to mention that I haven't touched on the flat Earth and satellites. Satellites don't exist. So how does Kubrick show us that satellites don't exist? Well, one of the first ways he shows us is Arthur C. Clarke was his roommate when he first moved to England. And Arthur C. Clarke, coincidentally, is the man who invents the satellite. Isn't that amazing? Well, so you think about it and you go, wait a second, Arthur C. Clarke invented the satellite. That doesn't really make any sense because Arthur C. Clarke is a science fiction writer. Why is a science fiction writer inventing the communications satellite? That doesn't make any sense. Also, Arthur C. Clarke is the one that decides on the Discovery ship, which is Robert Falcon Scott's ship name. And he used to visit the ship in port. And so the reason he selects Robert Falcon Scott and the Discovery for his Discovery ship in 2001: A Space Odyssey is because he used to visit the ship. And he mentions this in interviews. So there's some interesting stuff here. Let me go see if I have any pictures down here I could show you. Anyway, well, I just wanted to touch on that 1, Apollo 1, Apollo 1-1, aces are 1. Danny is born on 1-1. It's the first moon landing. It's the first AT&T phone ever used, video phone ever used. It's Woody Strode, the first black player. It's Jackie Robinson, the first black baseball player. It's always first. So, you know, that little list I just showed you there is the tip of the iceberg. We're shown the Jack Dempsey Terrier in The Shining. We see the Woman in Terrier, which is a famous painting by Alex Colville. And then we see in the color movie thing I showed you, you saw the Jack Dempsey Terrier. Jack Dempsey was a boxer. This is a clue to boxers. So we have Rocky is a rock. You know, we have James Mason, Oliver Stone, Rocky, the Blue Marble, the Jade Rabbit. We're given stones and diamonds and stuff like this. So there's different categories, but one of them is boxers. So we have Jack Dempsey. We also have Rocky Marciano. Let's minimize this now. And we'll go to Rocky Marciano. Here's Kubrick's Look magazine Rocky Marciano pictorial he does. So we have a direct connection between Kubrick and Rocky Marciano. So when Garrett Brown, color again, the founder of the Steadicam, leaves The Shining, he goes right to the Rocky movie. In the Rocky movie, we have Tony Burton. Tony Burton is a boxer. Tony Burton was also in the movie The Shining, and he's also a very good chess player. He supposedly beat Kubrick once in chess. So we have a boxer thread here, and we're being pointed to Rocky Marciano. We're being pointed to Philly. Remember we had Mare? Well, Mare, the opposite of Mare is Philly. I'm sorry, a Mare is an older horse, and a filly is I don't even know. But anyway, it's two female horses, and then you have Colt, which is also you have the Colt 45 pistol in Dr. Strangelove. You have the Colt Bushmaster rifle in Full Metal Jacket. So these themes are repeated. So we have boxers. It's a new category I haven't really gotten into, but there's Kubrick's Look magazine picture of Rocky Marciano. Let's go to, so Tony Burton is a boxer, Rocky Marciano's a boxer, Jack Dempsey's a boxer. So he's giving us boxers. His first movie is about boxing, and the two boxers are twins, the Cartier fight. We also have Cartier. We have Cartier the jeweler as well. So we have, what was the other one? I'm going to lose it here. We have Cartier the jeweler. You have Longines Chronoscope. Longines is a watchmaker. And that's the program that Admiral Byrd is on when he does his famous speech about the land that's bigger than the United States beyond the South Pole. So let's start somewhere else now. I kind of got off track a little bit. Let's just start somewhere. Here's Colleen Gray. She's a redhead. She's in the movie Killer's Kiss, and also gray as a color. Here's some impossible Apollo 15 photographs. We never went. This whole area back here is a front screen projection. This is something I mentioned earlier and I meant to get to and I never did, and then that's why I want to do it right now. I talked about Jungian archetypes, okay? So if you have Woody Strode, the first black professional football player, and Jackie Robinson, the first professional black baseball player, I would say you have a pair there, okay? And here are the archetypes. You have creator, caregiver, ruler, jester, regular, lover, hero, outlaw, magician, innocent, explorer, and sage. So as you come up with these pairs, they will fit in one of these categories. Clearly, Jackie Robinson and Woody Strode would be like the sports greats, the heroes. So, when we find Kubrick, he fits more in the magician category, okay? He's kind of he fools us with all his little tricks. The sage would be anybody watching this video. You're a truth seeker, you're a sage. So there's different Jungian archetypes. So Jung says we're controlled by these people, essentially by them controlling the Jungian archetypes. If they can control the Jungian archetypes and they can convince you that Neil Armstrong was the first man that landed on the moon, yada, yada, they can control what your view of the world is. So this is kind of how the mind control works. They control all the Jungian archetypes, and they control your history books. They control everything. And that's how it's done, through Jungian archetypes. But you're going to find these archetypes in Kubrick's puzzle. So keep that in mind. And then we have the synchronicity between there's a Jungian archetype wheel, which I don't think I have a picture of it here. But it looks very similar to this, and we have the signs of the zodiac around here. There's 12 of them. There's 12 months in the year, and we have the Gemini program, and we have the Cancer that we were given with fluoride, and we have Capricorn 1. Capricorn is also Danny Lloyd's astrological sign. Isn't that interesting? We're beating the dead horse. Again, this is what we're doing. There's Peter Bull. We have Matador's bulls. There's the Corvettes all the astronauts drove, and the moon buggy. The first mission that had the golf cart was Apollo 15. So you have Apollo 11 Eagle. Eagle is 2 under par. When Neil Armstrong lands on the moon, he says, one small step, one giant leap for mankind. And then he stops talking for a few seconds, and then Mission Control says something. And he says, yeah, that was about a 3-footer. And he's referencing his jump from the ladder to the surface of the moon was about a 3-footer. Well, a 3-footer in golf is a very short putt. So since they skipped the entire rocket trip to the moon, and they skipped the separation of the LEM and the CSM and the landing on the moon, and then they skipped the takeoff of the moon, reconnection with the CSM, and then the rocket launch back to Earth, they're 5 under par. Or, they're under par. They're 2 under par, the 2 different stages of the rocket. When he lands on the moon, they're 2 under par. When they land back on, they splash down back on the Earth, they're 5 under par. So 5 under par is usually called a double eagle. It's very rare this is ever done in golf, but it's called a double eagle. It's also called a falcon. So 5 under par is a falcon, eagle is a falcon. Apollo 15 is the first mission that brings a golf cart. They play golf on Apollo 14. They actually bring a golf ball to the, So there's a million golf ball clues. I mean, I think it's James Irwin says, we got a bogey at 10 o'clock high. There's a million of these little golf clues strewn throughout the Apollo missions. And once you find a few of them, you're like, oh my God, how did I not see this before? But there it is right in front of you. The Truman Show, he's giving the Apollo helmet, and the T, the missing letter. Plane plus T is planet. Here they are playing golf on Apollo 14, This is the longest golf shot on the moon, the first time they played golf on the moon. Here's Kubrick after the Colorado Lounge burns down. And so here's Kubrick on the set, and he's laughing because this fire fits into his allegorical story like a jigsaw puzzle. I almost wonder if he didn't start it himself. But the second backstory to this, which I didn't mention earlier, is when the Warner Brother company was called after the fire, and they were very worried that the movie The Shining was going to be damaged because of the fire, because apparently some of the reels were in this building when it went on fire. But Stanley Kubrick assured them that none of the movie was destroyed. It had been heat damaged, but it was recoverable. So they took the film footage and they recovered it. And this supposedly explains why the movie is so grainy. When I showed you earlier the little color vignettes in the actual movie, the little 33 and the Jack Dempsey Terrier and the Masonic sash and the little Mr. PR, that's really the reason the movie's so grainy. But he needed a reason to explain why the movie was so grainy. So he tells the Warner Brothers people that, it was damaged in the fire, but we were able to salvage the film, and we're not going to lose any time or money. So the Warner Brothers executives were relieved that, geez, at least the movie's fine. In reality, The Shining was the first digitally cut movie. So Kubrick is interviewed about the movie, and he apparently had an entire room full of computers, like a computer room, and he was talking about the computers, and he says, we don't ever shut the computers off in the digital editing lab. And the guy was like, well, how come you never shut the computers off? You're wasting electricity. And he said, well, the thing is, the computers don't like to be turned off, which is a really good story. You should get that one. I don't need to explain it. Here's the Apollo 1 crew. This is one of the photographs that got them killed. They started, going to the press and doing stupid stuff like this. Grissom hangs a lemon on the Apollo 1 capsule the day he dies. So, they were acting up. They were loose cannons. Someone had to shut these men up. And there's no better way to motivate men and shut them up than to kill 3 of them right in front of everyone. So you do it in broad daylight, you burn them up in their capsule. Everyone in this program knew these men were murdered. So when it comes around again and like, okay, we're going to have the next Apollo mission, Who wants to go to the press and start talking about it? These guys, however you feel about the Apollo astronauts now, and I have mixed feelings, I was very angry at first, but now I look at it and like these guys were really put in a position where, you either went along with it or you went home in a pine box. So when you think about these people and you get angry at them, remember that there was always a backup crew. There's 21 primary astronauts, there's 21 backup. If you don't make it, then the backup guy will. So there's no point in one man coming out. So they kept their mouth shut. And, that's how it was done. They always landed on the lit side of the moon, yet we see moonrise or Earthrise. That's completely impossible. You would never see Earthrise while you're standing on the lit side of the moon. I'm going to close that one. Here's Peter Sellers doing Carl Jung in Lolita. He's even doing the German accent, and he's very good. This man was like a chameleon. He could do anything he wanted to, and he's always playing three characters in Kubrick's movie. If you notice that, it's always three. This is I'm way ahead on this slide here, but I want to mention as as Tom Cruise approaches the club where Nick Nightingale is playing, we hear a piece of music playing in the background, and it goes like this. This is the same music we hear in Back to the Future at the Neptune Under the Sea dance. In this particular instance, we only hear one bar of it. He kind of riffs one bar of a song called Night Train. So keep that in mind. A little connection to Back to the Future and Night Train. Here's the allegory of you were Alex, you were at home, you were watching TV, you were watching Star Trek, you were watching the Apollo missions, you were watching Dr. Strangelove, you were watching whatever was on TV, and you didn't really know your eyes were strapped open, but they were. The Apollo 11 Eagle, it's 1 or 1-1, Apollo 1 or Apollo 11. Aces are 1 or 11. One-eyed Jack. I showed you the list earlier. I went through it already. This is Great Britain's first atomic weapon, and it was named the Blue Danube. So Kubrick selects Richard Strauss's music, Thus Spake Zarathustra, and he selects the Blue Danube. Okay, so why does he select the Blue Danube? Because it's Great Britain's first atomic weapon. And also it has a color in it, like the blue marble. And also it's a little reference to Nietzsche and Thus Spake Zarathustra. It's the awakening, the Aurora capsule, the goddess of the awakening. Here's another Minotaur Productions. It's Stanley Kubrick, Minotaur Productions. There's a million Minotaur clues. You just have to find them. This is Bruce Boa is his name. And Boa is a clue to snakes. We have the Sidewinder snake, which is also a missile. So there's a clue we're looking for missiles. So we have the Saturn V rocket. We have the Titan rocket. We have the Atlas rocket. The Atlas was the god that had the sphere globe on his back. We have the Mercury program rockets. We have the Apollo second stage Titan rocket. We have Battle of the Titans. We have the Titanic and the Olympic, the twin ships. So Bruce Boa is a clue to snakes. We have the Sidewinder. We have Sylvester Stallone. Oh wait, what the hell? I'm losing it now. Anyway, forget about the snake for right now. I'll come back with the list. But so he asked him, "What's the you put a Born to Kill helmet on your red peace button?" And he says, "Well, sure, it's the Jungian thing." So in other words, you had the light, which would be the peace button, and the dark would be Born to Kill. So it's a Jungian thing. So this is one of the big clues we're looking for Carl Jung. The Jungian archetypes, the light and dark, the shadow boxing, the dark side of the moon, it goes on and on. But, and that's how we get Carl Jung, and he's born the same day Kubrick is. he dies the day RFK dies, so it's a little clue to the Jungian thing and the Jungian archetypes and the fact we're weaving Jungian threads, famous stars and Jungian threads together using the allegory. And horse and train. Here's the diary clues. In Lolita, Humbert, by the way, there's one of your first clues to people with two first names. His name is Humbert. In Full Metal Jacket, you have Pyle. His name is Leonard Lawrence, so he's got two first names. Anybody with two first names you need to take a look at. So when you run into a John Glenn and you go, oh, John Glenn has two first names, or a Lewis Carroll, he has two first names. And remember, your puzzle is 1, 1, 1. Aces are 1 or 11. So if he has two first names, he's an 11. He's an ace. Okay, here's another thing I never mentioned. I just assumed it was obvious, so I didn't mention it, but obviously it's not, maybe it isn't obvious. So, I mean, the problem for me now is I've looked at this puzzle for so many years, everything's obvious to me. So it's hard to differentiate between what's obvious and what's not. One of the things I did not point out with the aces or 1 and 11 is every Apollo astronaut was a flying ace. Every one of them was a flying ace. So, Neil Armstrong, he's part of this puzzle. He's an ace, And Neil Armstrong is born the same day as Vivian Kubrick. Isn't that amazing? What a coincidence. So aces are 1 or 11. People with two first names like Humbert, Leonard Lawrence, Lewis Carroll. I'm not going to list them all. You guys have brains. You can figure this stuff out. I want you guys to start thinking about this and pretend that I'm not here holding your hand anymore. I want you to be able to take this puzzle language and run with it. The Tucker Snowcat, the first trans-Antarctic crossing. There's another Antarctic clue. The Timberline Lodge. Another really big, juicy clue, which I have not told you guys, is the Timberline Lodge. I think it was 1997. It was leaked to the media that the Timberline Lodge was a secret meeting place for the top NASA brass. Basically, they'd go up there and they'd stay at this lovely resort and ski and do whatever they do and plan fake missions and stuff. And so that got leaked to the media. So, Kubrick selects the Timberline Lodge. It's a secret NASA meeting place. It's an inactive volcano, which fits with his allegory. In the Overlook Hotel has the boilers that explode. And there's always some impending disaster. You have the horse and train picture. This is the side of a volcano, inactive volcano. Then you have the Trans-Antarctic Mission is the Tucker Snowcat. It goes on and on and on and on. This picture is from Look magazine near the time period that Kubrick worked there. FDR dedicates the Timberline Lodge. There's a lot of clues to Timberline and the fact that it was a secret meeting place for NASA brass. Minotaur again, you've seen that. You've seen that. One-Eyed Jacks, you've seen that. This is the Jungian thing. There's the shadow and the ego and the self. So they had the little post that said, do not feed the director during Marlon Brando's birthday picture I showed you earlier. There's a little clue that we're looking for the ego and the self and the Jungian. We can close this now. This is Kubrick's Look magazine pictures of Columbia University. Just like we had the Apollo 11 Columbia CSM. We had the Columbia. It was the first ship to circumnavigate, I should say, the first U.S. ship to circumnavigate the globe was named the Columbia. We have the Columbia University with Look magazine and Kubrick. We have the Betsy von Furstenberg from Columbia University, Look magazine. We have the mazes. There's 3 different mazes in the movie. The mazes actually move during the movie. I don't know if you know that. Here's Alex Colville's painting, Horse and Church. He paints this after Kennedy dies, and he tells everybody this is Blackjack the horse, and this is Kennedy's grave, and it's the doors of perception that are being opened. See, we have a little door here. So we don't have to wonder when we see Horse and Train in The Shining what the name of the horse is. It's Blackjack. And, so Bobby takes the train, Kennedy takes the horse, JFK Jr. takes the plane. There's There's the Minotaur again. You've seen that. There's Blackjack Kennedy's riderless horse. Here's the golf they played on the moon. You know, it's ridiculous. There's also a picture out there you could find where there's actually 3 astronauts standing on the moon playing golf. You know, so I don't know how they explain that because there was only 2 men on the surface, but somehow they do. And you had the moon rocks. You got Philip Stone, the Rolling Stones interviews from Kubrick. The Rolling Stones, Mick Jagger is born the same day as Kubrick. He stars in a movie called Free Jack. So there's a lot of Stones out there. There's Blue Marble, Jade Rabbit. I'll make a list of them. I think I've already made a list of them somewhere. And another thing I want to mention is I'm writing a lot of little alchemical word puzzles under each one of these videos. If you're not reading all the little crap that I write under there, you're missing a lot of the detail here. And some of the stuff really, it'll make sense to you, but it'll make a lot more sense if you read the little paragraphs I wrote. You know, here's the Greek mythology. You know that. Here's Michael Collins and his father, Lightning Joe. So we have Michael Collins whiskey. We've got Red Lightning, the horse in The Killing. We've got Lightning Joe Collins, his dad. So it's always father and son. Icarus and Daedalus were father and son. Jocks and Stanley were father and son. Jack and Danny are father and son. JFK and JFK Jr. are father and son. Michael Collins and his daughter, born the same day, Halloween Day, father and daughter. So we have father and daughter, father and son. Jupiter and Apollo, father and son. Saturn and Jupiter, father and son. So it goes on and on and on. There's fathers and sons all throughout this. We're looking for families here. We're not, so, you know, we're making pairs, okay? But in order to make pairs, you have to have the right suit, okay? So the suits are by the families. So when you find Lightning Joe and then Michael Collins, his son, with a whiskey named after him, distilled by this family, you know, like I said before, we're distilling the moonshine here. We're taking all these random facts and distilling them down to a meaningful message. So this is a very important part of it, the father and son deal. I haven't really mentioned it, but I wanted to now. Front screen projection, these are tapers. The skull you see him beating is not a taper skull, it's a horse skull. Keir Dalia stars in A Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. This is a movie based on his book. So here's our clue to Huxley's birthday being the same day as Kubrick. So we're given this, and they're alpha, beta, you know, they're all Greek alphabets. They worship the Model T, which is the missing letter from plane, is planet. We have the Scotts. Ridley Scott is the person, one of the guys you're looking for is Ridley Scott, by the way. Let's not get to that. We have the gold bug, the yellow beetle. It's a yellow beetle in the movie. It's a red beetle with the trailer in the book. Shelley Duvall dates Ringo, a beetle. Ringo was born the same day as Shelley, July 7th, the same day Anya Kubrick dies, the same day Herman Kahn dies. There's a whole list of July 7th dates. I will include them at the end of this video, probably tomorrow or the next day. You know, the One-Eyed Jacks, the Cards, Columbia University, Kubrick. This is a little clever thing. You have this, you know, it's sort of a Jungian wheel with all the Apollo, all the Greek gods on it. So instead of using zodiac, you're using the Greek gods. Instead of using Jungian archetypes, you're using the Greek gods. It's just like a tie-in from Greek gods to Jungian archetypes to the zodiac. You know, this is David Randolph Scott, and you know this is the Apollo 15 crew here. You have Worden, Scott, and Irwin. Irwin, it turns out, is a real-life falconer. You know, he has his own falcon here, and he plays with his falcon. It's very clever. The Corona. This is in Flushing, Queens. This whole area of land. This is a very critical thing that I have not mentioned yet. All of Flushing, Corona, Queens was reclaimed land. It was land that was built from horse shit and coal ash. So this area that they built the Unisphere on and the World's Fair and Shea Stadium, the place that the Beatles play. The first show after Paul dies, the Beatles play at Shea Stadium, by the way. So we have the Shea Stadium, we have Corona, and we find out that all of the land is reclaimed and it's built on horse shit and ashes. So we have the Apollo missions were complete horse shit, and they were built on the ashes of the Apollo 1 crew. So this is a little allegorical tie-in with the fact that Corona is built on horse shit and ashes, just like the Apollo missions are built on horse shit and ashes. There's Alan Shepard's golf ball. He probably sells those for $5,000 a piece. Here's the White Beetle in Clockwork Orange. He's hiding these vehicles as a clue, by the way, and I haven't really totally got into that yet. I know I talked about the Mustang, the Morgan, a Mustang is a horse, a Morgan is a horse. This is the handmade Morgan that Tim Carey drives, that the horseshoe gets the flat tire in the Morgan convertible. And also the car has a wooden frame. And why is that important? Because we find out the Adams probe from Clockwork Orange is also another handmade vehicle with a wooden frame. So how many handmade vehicles with wooden frames do you know? I only know two, the Adams probe and the Morgan. There could be others, but it's a very rare combination. A, it's handmade. B, it's convertible. C, it's got a wooden frame. So he's giving you vehicle clues. So here's one of the first clues that we're looking for Beatles. You have John Lennon writes the song We All Shine On. He's murdered by Mark David Chapman, who's reading Catcher in the Rye. And like I said, I haven't really got into the Beatles yet, but believe it, they are part of the puzzle. Anne Margaret, Queen of Vegas, you know this. Rocky Marciano, this is Kubrick's Look